On the morning of 17th October 1917, a three-masted schooner was sighted trapped on rocks near the French port of Cherbourg. When French Navy officers boarded the ship, they found it undamaged, with the hold still completely filled with a cargo of coal. Below decks, a stove was burning, with the main table having apparently recently been set for a meal. A check of the captain's quarters found the ship's charts and logbooks fully intact, and also provided the French sailors with the ship's name, the Zebrina, a cargo ship that had departed Britain 2 days prior in order to transport her precious cargo to France to assist with the Allied war effort. But when the ship had set sail, she possessed a crew of 5 sailors, of which now there was no trace to be found. At the outbreak of the Great War, the Zebrina was close to 40 years old, but like many ships her age, she was soon pressed into service by the British government to aid with the war effort. For the next 4 years, the Zebrina would make repeated transport runs across the English Channel, from Britain to France. Her cargo for the majority of these trips was predominantly Welsh coal, for the use of the Allied armies fighting on the continent. Throughout that period, she was considered a lucky ship, having never come into contact with any enemy vessels or sustained any damage. On the morning of the 15th October 1917, she departed from the Cornish port of Falmouth on a trip much like any other. 48 hours later, she was found unmanned and abandoned, with her entire crew missing. The Zebrina was captained by a 33-year-old officer named J. Archibald Martin, assisted by a crew of 3 able seamen and a steward. It was later discovered that the ship's logbook had not been amended by Martin since the ship had left Falmouth, offering no hint of the fate that had befallen her. Despite lying low in the water due to her cargo, with a draft of only 6 feet, the 189-ton ship was completely undamaged, both inside and out. Instruments and equipment were found exactly where they would be expected during a sea journey, as well as food and drinks that were half consumed. In addition to the apparent sudden disappearance of the crew, the location where the ship was found also raised questions. She had been destined to deliver the coal she was carrying to the port of Saint-Brieuc, located in Brittany. But when she was found, she was over 200 miles to the northeast of that location, near the port of Cherbourg. An investigation into the affair by the authorities on both sides of the channel failed to ever locate the missing crew members. So what could have happened to them? One theory is that the ship was exposed to sudden and harsh weather midway through her journey. These conditions could have been so severe they convinced Captain Martin that his ship was about to capsize or sink. At that time, he could have given the order for the crew to abandon ship, only to then perish in the seas as their ship sailed on, unmanned. The strength of this theory is that weather in the channel had been so poor for the previous 2 days, the ship's sailing had already been delayed twice. But when located, the ship showed no sign of storm damage, and there was no water to be found on her deck or within her hull. In addition to this, the ship's rigging was set for calm sailing, just like the calm seas she was found in on the day she was located. A more worrying proposition is that the crew had been stopped by an enemy submarine and had died as a result of this encounter. Whilst German U-boat crews did not routinely kill British sailors, if the 5-man crew of the Zebrina had resisted, that may unfortunately have ended up being the outcome. An even more grisly theory is that the Germans could have captured the crew and taken them aboard their submarine, which was then subsequently sunk by the Royal Navy. There was significant U-boat activity in the Channel for the 2 days of the Zebrina's voyage, with 5 British ships sunk during that period. And yet there was no trace of a struggle aboard the ship, with the logbook and her papers left in situ. It's also unlikely that having stopped this ship, the Germans would have simply removed the crew and left it to the elements, rather than sinking it themselves. Beyond these 2 main hypotheses, there are various other more clandestine proposals as to what might have taken place. One is that the vessel had been infiltrated by a foreign agent, who killed the crew, and then abandoned the ship once this deed was done. The other is that the Zebrina might have been used by either side to insert a spy or a VIP into France, bypassing the main ports of entry. Sadly, There's never been any evidence to help prove or disprove any of these theories. Ultimately, and despite the strange fate of her crew, the Zebrina went on to survive both world wars. In later years, she was converted to a houseboat situated in Langston Harbour near to Plymouth, and then in 1953 she mysteriously caught fire and sank at her berth, taking any hope of resolving the riddle under the waters with her.